watching the Bulldog Brewhouse podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Steve Grover. We're back for another episode of the Bulldog Brewhouse podcast. Hopefully everyone's enjoying this June. I know it's a little rainy today, but that's typical for Calgary. We get most of our precipitation in June. I don't know if people knew that, but that's an interesting fact from a native Calgarian like myself. But we're back here, and I've got Len Francis here. And Len, how are you doing?
I'm doing awesome, Steve. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming. I know we met about a year ago at Two Will Sunday. It's a great event that we sponsor, Grover Law Firm. We're always a title sponsor. And I know who you are, but let my viewers know who Len Francis is.
Sure. Len Francis, I'm a retired veteran after 30 years of service.
Okay.
Currently working for an IBM tech company now. So
Okay.
I do consulting, and
Yeah.
and I'm a family man, and
Okay.
just try and be an enthusiastic biker in the biker community out there, and just
Okay.
enjoying life.
So where were you born?
Southeast part of Saskatchewan, a small town called Mydale. It's
Okay, Mydale.
Halfway between Weyburn and Estevan. So
Okay.
that's what I always tell
I've heard
people.
both of those other cities, but I've never
Yeah.
heard of Mydale.
Yeah, it's a
But-
population of 600
Okay.
on a good day, and
Yeah.
yeah,
So is that a farming community?
it is definitely a farming.
What's the
community.
big farm? Like, what do they farm out there?
Wheat.
Wheat.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah, Saskatchewan's a good province. My mom's side of the family is a farming family from Saskatchewan. Very interesting. I guess would be my great-great-grandfather had like 9 girls and 1 boy. So I assume that's a big farming family from Saskatchewan.
Yeah, yeah.
But interesting, all of them moved out to Calgary. Okay? And they're getting up there. They're in the 90s and close to a century of old. But, I think everyone that's a native Calgarian some way has a tie to Saskatchewan. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I would totally agree.
Yeah.
You just need to go to a Stampeders game, and you know how many Saskatchewan people
Yeah.
live in the city.
And I know the joke is the last person that leaves Saskatchewan, remember to turn the lights off. I don't know if
That's
you heard
correct.
that joke.
I did. That's why we left. We didn't want to be the last person.
Okay. And then how long you been out in Calgary for?
Since '96.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was after the Olympics. And how
Yeah.
do you enjoy Calgary?
We love it here.
Yeah?
We love it.
And what do you like about Calgary?
Well, definitely the people.
Yeah.
The friendliness,
Yeah.
and everything they promote about Calgary being friendly, right?
Yeah.
Deals are done with handshakes, and
Yeah, okay.
it's just a fun, easy-going environment, and we just
Okay.
absolutely love it. You can go anywhere and say
Yeah.
hi to anybody. So.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you, if I was your lawyer, I would not agree for you to make deals with handshakes, okay? I mean, make sure you have it in paper. I mean, I remember that was the old way in the 60s and 70s, but, contracts are pretty important. So if you ever do any deals, let me know. I can gladly help you out,
Yeah,
okay?
that's awesome.
Not like I'm looking for new business. So you're a veteran of the Canadian military?
Yes.
What branch did you serve in?
I did both logistics and the armored. So
Okay.
I split my time between the two.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And then you were 30 years, eh?
Yeah, 30
Okay.
years total, yeah.
And when did you get out of the service?
In 2009, I retired.
Okay, so it was over a decade ago, pretty
Definitely,
much. Okay.
yeah.
And what attracted you to serve in the Canadian military?
I didn't want to go to jail.
No? Is that really?
I had to get out of trouble.
Okay.
I was down that teenager path.
Okay.
And, needed to clean up and sort out my life.
Yeah.
And I needed some structure, and I said, maybe I'll try the military for a while. And
Okay.
It turned out to be quite a career for me.
So how old were you when you you're an enlisted person, right?
Yeah.
When did you enlist in the Canadian military?
When?
Yeah, how old were you?
18, I guess.
18. Were you
Yeah.
still in Saskatchewan?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So out of curiosity, does the Canadian military have like recruiting posts in smaller cities in Canada rather than
Yeah,
going?
absolutely.
So
yeah.
they
Yeah.
sort of follow the American mentality. I don't know if you've been to Montana.
I have, but not part of that
Okay.
process.
Yeah,
I
but
know.
I'll let you know. It's very interesting. I went to school in America. I went to law school in Texas. I've got family down there, and it's usually when they have recruiting stations, they're usually in smaller towns like Kalispell, Montana. They're not in like LA, because usually those are smaller towns where kids want to get out of the rural areas and get into the military and go overseas. And was that an attraction for you also, not only to be disciplined, but maybe see some of the world?
I would say when I signed up, it was never the forefront.
Yeah.
But as you got more and more experience and you'd seen more
Yeah.
and more of your brothers and combat and armed fellows go overseas, you
Yeah.
always said, well, hey, pick me next. And it was
Okay.
always part of your DNA.
Yeah.
That's the way you were trained. So
Okay.
we always
Cool.
felt that you had an obligation, but
Mhm.
it obviously doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, we got a lot of veterans that put in tons of time and effort in the military now without overseas tours, and you know, we all train the same. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And then, so you're 18 when you joined the Canadian military. Were you put in logistics right away?
I signed up for logistics. So,
Okay.
I walked into the armories in Regina.
Yeah.
On Elphinstone Street, right by Taylor Field, back in the old Taylor
Yeah.
Field days, if
Yeah.
you've been to Regina. And, I had a choice to sign up with the rifles, the medics, or logistics. And then in logistics, you had all kinds of different things to sign up for, whether you wanted to be supply or a cook or
Mm-hmm.
a maintainer or a transport. And I saw big trucks, and I said, I like big trucks, so I want to drive big trucks. So I signed up with the
Okay.
transport. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have your CDL, your Class 1 driver's license?
No,
No,
no.
okay,
no.
okay.
I mean, you get all of the training,
Mhm.
but when you transition into the civilian life, you have to take a whole new set of courses.
Okay.
It's like you don't know how to drive big trucks and
Okay.
don't know air brakes once you
Yeah.
retire. So.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So you saw logistics as a way to drive big trucks.
Yep.
And that's what attracted you.
That's
Okay.
what I started.
Yeah, okay. Very interesting. Like I studied military history in university and graduate school, and it's kind of interesting. Like people watch like Platoon, or what was that movie with Tom Hanks when they, like the Bands of Brothers
Oh, yeah.
was based on
Yeah,
that movie.
that
What was the
whole
movie with
series.
Matt Damon? It was that Steven Spielberg movie.
Yeah,
Saving Private Ryan, and you
yeah.
see all the guys going to war.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people do not understand that you have to have logistics following you, correct? Pretty
Yeah,
much?
Yeah. Well, that's how wars are won and lost.
Yeah,
right? When you do
exactly.
your historic
Yeah. and-
studying, right? You
Yeah.
cut off the beans and bullets and.
yeah, and then it's all done.
Yeah.
So if you cut off logistics of getting stuff to the front, you're pretty much, your army's not going to be very useful.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's easy for us to say being part of the logistics. If you talk to the guys in the front line, they'll say you're nothing without us too. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's kind of a friendly back and forth
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay. And logistics, what were you in charge of? What department? Was there a certain department you worked in, or everything?
Being in as long as I did, I got to fill in all the positions
Mm-hmm.
from platoon commander to company commander to
Mm-hmm.
DCO and deputy commanding officer of the battalion.
Yeah.
So I mostly OC trucks is what I take most of my pride in the logistic world. Is,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I was in charge of all of the transportation and all
Okay.
the logistical aspects of transport. So.
Okay. And where were you stationed? Anywhere interesting at all, or no?
No, I wouldn't say interesting. I
No.
did 10 plus years in Regina.
Okay.
And then we moved out here to Calgary, and I
Mhm.
did a few years with the Logistics Service Battalion here in Calgary.
Curry Barracks?
Well, we were up in the Northeast. We had a barracks up
Okay.
in the Northeast.
Okay.
And then again, we had obviously a lot of people at Curry Barracks as well.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I did a few years at Brigade Headquarters working in their G4 shop, again, logistics.
Mhm.
And then I got attached posted to the King Zone.
Okay.
And then I spent a few years there, and then I was OCA squadron for a while, and then I just eventually retired in '09. I said enough.
Okay. Did you serve overseas at all, like Iraq or
No,
Afghanistan?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you get selected to go overseas? Is there certain criteria, or do you have to volunteer to go? Like, obviously, Iraq was in 2003, and then Afghanistan was there, and then I know it's all been pulled out of Afghanistan. Do you have to ask to be overseas, or they just pick you and make
Well,
you
there's
go?
there's lots of positions available.
Yeah.
They post the positions, and it starts with putting up your hand saying I'm interested.
Yeah. Okay.
And then as a company commander and a commanding officer and other leadership, they'll assess your readiness. And then they'll put your name forward, and then you get selected, and then you go on pre-deployment training, and then you go on deployment training, and then you have post-deployment stress to deal with
Yeah.
the tour. So it's actually a pretty rigorous selection
Okay.
process. So
All right.
it does start with putting up your hand, but
Yeah.
then obviously there's always a need. So
Yeah. Okay. And then you served all your time in Canada.
correct. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And obviously, after 30 years, you retired. And was it just your time to move on, pretty much?
Yeah, it's, you just kind of run your course, and my evolution was to take commanding officer of a regiment, and there was a long list in front of me, and I was like, I don't want to sit here for another 6-10 years to wait for my name to come up.
Yeah.
So I just saw it as an opportunity to step away and pick up other hobbies, and I did that. So
Okay.
yeah.
And then after you're retired, obviously, serving the military is important. So, a lot of people don't understand freedom is just not free. We fight overseas for our freedom. And so anybody who serves in the military has got my respect. So obviously it was good on you to serve your country. Like JFK says, don't ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
I always tell people as well, I love what the military made me,
Yeah.
but we're never proud of what they left us.
Okay, so when you, as you mentioned that, what did they make you? Like, what, going through the service of 30 years, well, how did they change your life to make it better?
I'm very confident.
Yeah.
Tons of integrity, lots of value systems that that you teach every day in
Yeah.
school.
Yeah,
Structured approach.
Yeah.
Your ability to respond well under stress.
Yeah.
Your ability to minimize your smiling in front of cameras and in front of people,
Yeah.
which my wife hates. But
Yeah. yeah,
yeah, it's just your whole character of what builds you as a person.
okay,
You have an aura about you
Yeah.
coming from the military
Yeah.
that people tend to gravitate to,
yeah,
and then the leadership qualities that
Yeah.
make you expose that to the next level. Is,
okay,
I take a lot of that away from, and then obviously all of the friendships.
Yeah.
I cannot see somebody for 15 years and you see them in a coffee shop and
Yeah.
you talk like you've never separated. It's a
Okay.
brotherhood you never forget.
yeah, okay, well, that's great. So obviously you go into civilian life, and how was life when you retired to enter into regular Canadian society?
Oh,
Was
very
it,
difficult transition.
and why was that?
Again, I know the military is different now, but
Mhm.
back when I retired,
Yeah.
profanity was a way of life
In the military?
in the military.
Okay.
And then you walk into a civilian boardroom,
Yeah.
and when every second word out of your mouth is laced with profanity, that
Yeah.
doesn't last long.
No, okay,
Everything in the military is very hierarchy.
Mhm.
When you deal with corporate life, everything's sort of flat.
hmm
And
Yeah.
and that's a difficult transition when you're used to saying yes sir, no sir, three
Yeah.
bags full sir. Now all
Yeah.
of a sudden your opinion counts and you have just an equal voice at the table. That was a tough transition.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay. Would you have rather been in a corporate society where there's CFO, CEO, there's a hierarchy, sort of like in the military?
I would function better in
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
but that's just not the way
Okay.
organizations are built these days.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I've learned to adapt like anything. It's
Mhm.
a military quality, right? You
Mhm.
adapt to anything you're thrown at and
Mhm.
you learn to overcome.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. And then obviously you mentioned you're into motorcycling, and when did you begin riding a bike?
Well, when I was knee high to a grasshopper.
Okay,
Yeah. it
yeah.
was,
And was it just your parents that got you involved
Yep,
in it?
yep. Started off in the little YZ 50s,
Yeah.
and dirt biking, and grew through that whole stage, and
Mhm.
then traded my dirt bike in for a horse, and then outgrew that. And
Yeah.
then I started buying a cruiser, and then
Mhm.
I did that for a while, and then
Yeah.
I went to sport bikes,
Yeah.
and then full circle back to a cruising life now.
Okay, and what are you currently riding?
I have a 2019 Street Bob right now. Yeah.
Okay, what color is it?
It's a candy apple red.
Yeah.
I had it professionally painted
Yeah.
and mural and
Yeah.
idolize and military themes.
Yeah, yeah, I saw it at they had the open house at Calgary Harley. It was a pretty sweet looking bike.
Yeah,
And what
thank
kind
you.
of size of engine you got in there?
Well, I don't tell people a
Yeah.
lot, but it's a
Yeah.
128.
Okay,
Stage
so-
4. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's a fast bike for a smaller kind of cruiser.
very,
bike.
very fast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, and that's
And
it.
loud.
And you enjoy it, hey?
Yeah.
Okay. So interesting. Now you go into civilian life, and where did that lead you to when you retired from the military? You went into the corporate structure a little bit, or
Yeah. Like everything, whatever position you take, leadership just kind of follows you. It's part of
Mhm.
your aura. So
Mhm.
I elevated through the leadership circles pretty quickly.
yeah,
Again, kind of like the military, you fill all of the key positions, and in corporate life, I've filled pretty much all of the key positions, and
Mhm.
it's been a journey, and I think, all of the skills and qualities and whatnot that I got from the military
Mhm.
you apply them in corporate life, and it worked out well for me.
Okay, all right. So obviously, I mean, I know you through the biking community, and obviously you served the military, and I know you approached us, and I've seen your before. You've had it's called the Invisible Warrior.
Correct, yeah.
Correct. And
Yeah.
so, tell us about the history of that. How did that come about, and what's the purpose and sort of the function of that? Like, why was that founded?
So it's been probably about 25 years in the making.
Yeah.
A lot of it has been conversation, and we've always, even when we were serving as a group, we always advocated that our honors and award systems needs a reset.
Mm-hmm.
And a reset meaning that we think that the definition of veterans in the public's eye traditionally are World War I, World War II,
Yeah.
and maybe even the Korean War.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to advocate for what we call the modern veteran or the modern soldier, which is, post those wars.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to highlight that their time and their service is just as important and should be recognized.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're trying to do is a medal for their service,
Mm-hmm.
not to be confused with the service medal issued in 1946 to all of the serving and veterans back
Mhm,
then.
mhm.
They haven't done anything
Yeah.
and revamped the system
Yeah.
for 80 plus years. So
Okay.
we're advocating mostly for
Mhm.
veterans out
Yeah.
there that have never received a medal. We're trying to bring public awareness to
Mhm.
them that, excuse me, their time served is just as important as the next person, and
Mhm.
they should be recognized and acknowledged for
Mhm.
that. And one way that we wanted to do that is to lobby the government through the public eyes
Mhm.
to commission and or allow us to commission a medal for their service.
Okay. So when you're talking, obviously, there's World War I, which is the first war of everything. It was supposed to, we all know the history of the trench warfare and the development of the tanks and all mustard gas and all that stuff between the Germans and
Yeah.
the Allies, the English and the French. And then you got World War II, obviously, which is pretty, encompassing
Substantial.
between Nazi Germany and the Empire of Japan versus the rest of the Allies. But then obviously, do a lot of Canadians understand that, there's other wars post World War II? Obviously, Afghanistan's been in the news,
Yeah.
Iraq, and Korean War too. But why has there been this cutoff since 1946, not for almost 80, 90 years to cut, not to have that recognition medal for service going forward?
Yeah, I wish I had the answer for
Yeah,
that. I
yeah.
mean, my gut feel and our gut feel
Mhm.
is that it's just not substantial enough in the public's eyes. It's in the moment. In the moment on Remembrance Day, everybody has and acknowledges, but it's like a month before and a month after.
Yeah.
And then there's the other 10 months of the year that we get forgotten. So like anything, if it's not always part of your nature moving forward and
Mhm.
recognizing and memorying and being part of or
Mhm.
being impacted by somebody that was part of it,
Mhm.
people, it's like putting your hand in a bucket of water, you pull it out, it fills in right away with something else. So you're
Mhm.
not top of mind anymore.
Mhm. Mhm.
And you listen to a lot of newscasts and they say that all our veterans are dying off and
Mhm.
they're not out there. And our counter to that is we have probably close to 500,000 veterans in Canada.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of veterans out there that don't even know they consider themselves a veteran by definition
Yeah.
of Veteran Affairs, which is, basic training, honorable
Mhm.
discharge.
Yeah.
They don't even think of themselves as a veteran.
Mhm.
There's people that served in between some of the wars that you talked about
Mhm.
that did, 10, 11, 12 years
Mhm.
and walked out, but because there was no war or any
Mhm.
conflict at that time, people don't even acknowledge them as veterans.
So do you think part of the problem is it's been so glorified, World War I and World War II, that sort of, and I didn't know this, but a friend of the family mentioned to me that I think Canada had the second or third biggest navy in the world after World War II, and then it got dismantled. Is that true?
I'm not 100% sure on that, but it wouldn't surprise
Yeah,
me.
yeah. And I've been to St. John's, Newfoundland, and there's a history plaque of how the American Navy came in, the engineers, and they dug the whole port out, and they made this huge port because obviously they needed to get to Europe, to get supplies across the Atlantic. And then there's sort of like this dismantling of the Canadian Army after World War II. You think that maybe be the start of what happened? Like there's not a glorified sexiness, sorry to say, but
Yeah.
of the military like in the U.S.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And I think Afghanistan is probably the closest
Mm-hmm.
that we've been in a long, long time.
Yeah.
But I also feel that it's being forgotten quickly.
Well, there was that movie called Hyena Road. Have you seen that one?
I haven't seen it, but I heard about it.
Yeah, that's about the Canadian. I think they got stuck in some kind of crossfire and stuff like that. I didn't see it, but unfortunately, there was a demilitarization of the Canadian forces after World War II. And obviously, like we live right next to America, the biggest superpower in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think they spent $800 billion a year just on the military alone.
And they tell everybody about
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And then second in line would be Russia at $80 billion.
Yeah.
But, it doesn't matter what you spend. If you have nuclear warheads, you just blow up the world four times over. It doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
But, there was, like, after World War II, there was a vacuum that was created. You'd have to agree with that. The British Empire
100%,
fell,
yeah.
the French Empire fell, Japan fell, and so who was going to, swarp into that vacuum? And obviously, it was America and Soviet Union, and probably and then probably being a colony or part of the Commonwealth of England still. Maybe Canada was put to a side, and America swallowed up the whole military, scene, especially when they took the divisive plan to put in the Marshall Plan, rebuild Europe, and stuff like that. So you think just the swarming of America has subsided the Canadian military, and you got to admit there's not much. I mean, people do respect the service. There's Remembrance Day and there's poppies and all that stuff, but it's not in the limelight like in America. Would you agree with that?
I 100% agree. They go
Yeah.
out of their way to make sure that everybody knows they are the superpower and
Yeah.
their military are well
Yeah.
taken care of and looked after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the same time, they do have Hollywood, so they know how. If you want to promote something, you go to America. They'll know how to
Yeah.
sell you like
Yeah.
a glass of water and pay $50 for it.
Exactly,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? But why? So why has there been this downfall of the Canadian military? I mean, everyone's got their own little theory what happens, pretty much.
Definitely funding.
Yeah.
Not prioritizing it.
But why has there not been a prioritization from Parliament to fund the Canadian military?
So it goes back to public awareness.
Yeah.
It's our theory anyway.
Yeah.
There are a lot of competing pressures out there to live in today's day and age, whether it's food on or housing or, healthcare, whatever it
Yeah.
is, right? And then
Yeah.
along come a group of, 100,000 active serving and 500,000 veterans that are out there saying, hey, remember me. And they say, well, here's a little bit for you. Public is really the influence, and
Yeah.
the squeaky wheel gets the grease is
Yeah.
a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And when you deal with a lot of those competing priorities and you only have so much money to spend and so much money you can tax people, somebody loses out.
Yeah.
And we believe it's been the Canadian military that's
Yeah.
lost out. We believe
Yeah.
that veterans have lost out
Yeah.
when you consider their sacrifices and
Yeah.
what they left and
Yeah.
what they have to do to survive in today's economy, right?
Yeah.
It's a huge difference, and that's why we feel our Invisible Warrior project is really to advocate and make it a top of mind for the public, and have the public advocate for us, and have the public advocate for all veterans in the military, and buy a veteran a medal, and all of these things that we can start putting together, because at approximately $50 to craft a medal, and you multiply that by 600,000, that's a big ticket. But if you asked a civilian to, would you buy a family member or a veteran a medal if they qualified for it, then people would instantly give you 50.
Yeah, yeah.
And the only way that we can do that is have the public aware and create that pressure on the government, and continually push the government to make, the choice is tough to say maybe we need to revamp our 80-year-old system and start
Yeah.
recognizing everybody in the military for their service, regardless if they were in conflict or not.
So how did you come up with the name Invisible Warrior? Sounds like a Marvel kind of,
Yeah.
because I'm into Marvel movies, sort of like a Marvel
Yeah.
character.
It goes back to our thought process of, there's 500,000 veterans out there, but when you listen to some of the news casts and whatnot, they say our veterans are dying, our legions are dying.
Well, we're talking about World War II veterans, World
Yeah.
War I veterans.
and we're forgetting about
Yeah.
every other veteran.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
And even if you served 1 year in the Canadian military, you're still a veteran if you're
Yeah.
honorary discharge, correct?
absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Basic training and honorable
Yeah,
discharge.
yeah,
So that,
Yeah,
So a lot of them don't go out on parade on Remembrance Day. A lot of them don't even know that they qualify as a veteran. We call them invisible. And because we're calling them warriors, Invisible Warrior came to fruition as our advocate key tag to try and promote is like there are a lot of veterans out there that we need to bring out and recognize. And a way to recognize them more than just thanking them is give them a medal for their service.
okay.
And you know, I always tell people this story is, you know, and we always talk about what the public notices as a veteran. And if you go to Google and you say, you know, draw me or show me a picture of a veteran with medals, you'll get a picture of a guy with a rack of medals.
Yeah, I mean.
You type
yeah,
the same thing
yeah.
and said, show me a picture of a veteran without medals.
Yeah,
You know what you'll get?
yeah,
A picture of a veteran with a rack of medals.
yeah, yeah.
The only way that works is the public being able to change that. The public sees a veteran with
Yeah.
medals. The
Yeah.
public sees a veteran as
Yeah.
World War I,
Yeah.
World War II.
Yeah,
We want to change that conversation.
okay.
I even go to AI and some of the unique tools that they have. And AI typically is only as smart as what we tell them.
Yeah,
And you
artificial intelligence.
You
okay.
can tell them the exact same thing. Draw
Yeah.
me a picture of a veteran without medals. You'll get a veteran with medals.
Yeah,
It shows how broken the knowledge is of what a veteran is, and they're
Yeah.
invisible.
Yeah.
And so,
so can I, so maybe the system's broken. So you go, say I go in the military when I'm 18 and I joined like in 2010, okay? And I served 5 years.
Yep.
And I was honorably discharged and I didn't serve overseas. When I'm discharged, does the military tell me that I'm a veteran or not?
No.
So why, so is that the problem there? Like the administration of the Canadian military is not telling, like you serve in the Navy, you serve in the Air Force.
They'll give you a certificate for your service. The
But-
public calls you a veteran.
But why doesn't the military say, you know, we thank you for your time and you know what, you're a veteran and, you know, we respect you for, you know, serving your country, not asking your country to give you stuff and you're officially a veteran. But that's not being portrayed to the general women and,
No.
and
Well,
guys as they
No.
leave. And
When
why
I
is that?
retired, I got probably about 4 or 5 different certificates
Yeah.
thanking me for my service.
Yeah,
And out of all 5 of them,
yeah,
there was something wrong with it. They weren't consistent. Either my name was wrong,
Yeah.
my years of service were wrong, my decorations were wrong.
yeah.
I mean, they even misspelled my wife's name.
So why is that though? Why
I
is the
think
Canadian administration?
They're only as smart as what the technology tells them,
Yeah.
and they just pump out paper,
Yeah,
right? So,
okay.
I mean,
And they don't give you a medal for your service.
when you have 12 years,
Yeah.
you get what you call a CD. When you're at 22, you get a bar on your CD. 32.
So what's a CD? Just
It's a commemorative decoration.
okay. Yeah.
We always joke about its years of undetected crime. So
Mm-hmm.
if you've got your CD at 12 years undetected crime and 22 years of undetected crime.
Okay.
And then there's a lot of commemorative medals that you can get, Queen's Jubilee,
Yeah.
the King's Coronation
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
The Canada 125. A lot of those were awarded mostly from who you knew, not necessarily earned. So,
Yeah.
so again, like there's so many different categories and classifications in our current honors and award system, and the way they group it, it's complex sometimes, and
Yeah.
people get lost in the shuffle, and they never get the medals that they deserve, or they didn't even know that they were worthy of one, and they just kind of walk away and they get their certificate and they think they're done, and they didn't even really know they were a veteran unless.
So just like this group that you have, Invisible Warrior, you founded it, or has it been in the works for 25 years?
Yeah, so we officially registered as a charity
'Kay.
last year.
'Kay.
We got our not-for-profit and our charity license, and we're on Benevity and all the other licenses that
Yeah.
you need to be
Yeah.
a legit accept donations type of
Yeah.
organization. So
Yeah.
we're just over a year official now.
Okay.
But conceptually, 25 plus years, we've had lots of conversation until we finally said we need to do something different because talk is not working.
So are you lobbying the government now? Or are
So-
you just going to the public?
Right now, we're going to the public because
Yeah.
we feel the public is going to be our key into the government to create the pressure and prioritize the
Yeah.
redirection of funds.
So this is interesting because I went to school in America and I go to the U.S. a lot. And you know what? Canadians are just a different breed than Americans. Wouldn't you agree with me on that?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Because, okay, I'm just going to give you an example the past election. For 10 years, everyone's complaining about the Liberals and Trudeau. And guess who gets back in the power?
Yeah.
And who's now Prime Minister? Probably Trudeau's best buddy, Carney.
Yep.
And where does Carney's family live? New York. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we just went through this with Bill 47. Our industry has been affected by auto accidents. Now there's no fault. January 1st, 2027. I don't know if you're in a motorcycle accident, it's not your fault. If I hit you and you break your leg, you can't sue me. There's no
Very-
justice,
It's
okay?
all about the money, right?
I know, but there was no active within the public of like, you know, I know in the U.S. if they had tried to pass this law in Texas, they probably would have burnt down the state legislature in Austin.
Trump would have called the National Guardian.
Well, I no, but the problem is I think the biggest problem I'm going to tell you is I studied U.S. constitutional law in America and I studied Canadian constitutional law when I came back to get my degree certified to practice in Canada. Americans know their legal rights when they're born.
Oh, guaranteed. Yeah.
Well, you go to kindergarten, and I've got nephews and nieces, and they know the allegiance to the U.S. flag right away. Boom, 4 or 5 years old. Boom,
Yep.
they know who served in the
The
military.
national anthem, you name
I know,
it, they know it all.
but
yeah.
you got to understand that is a fundamental problem of Canada. That is not in the education system. Would you agree with that?
Right.
I don't think anyone knows that we have a Bill of Rights.
No, you're
You
probably
know, Trudeau
right. Yeah.
passed in 1982. We have a constitution.
Mhm.
I mean, you know, everything's coming across TV from America, and when you identify anything with military, it's usually the U.S. Military, just because of our advertising and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
I objectively saw this in the last 6 months, and I've come to the conclusion that Canadians really don't know what's going on legally in this country at all.
They only have capacity in
Yeah.
their bubble, and then
So,
outside.
so
of
my
that,
concern to you is, I know you have a good cause, and I respect your cause, and Grover Law Firm wants to help your cause. I know you've given your swag, your pamphlets, and we give that in our swag bag so people identify. We mention you guys at events that we go to, even like in Edmonton this past weekend. But the biggest problem I found in Canadians, honestly, the public, will they take the mantle and do change?
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem. In America, you go to Montana, they're gonna like, you know what, you served in the military. My dad was in Vietnam. Like I watched Rambo. My uncle was in Vietnam. He's a veteran. So do you see that possibly as being a barrier to getting some fruition of what you want to be
At
done?
the individual level, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's that's why we've kind of reached out to yourself as
Yeah.
a corporate sponsor.
Yeah.
We want to reach out to other people,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the more corporate sponsorship you have, the
Mhm.
more chance you have of influencing a corporate culture and
Yeah.
then individuals,
Yeah.
and then the more you become word of mouth. So
Mhm.
you got to mushroom out, right?
Yeah.
And again, like we've only actively been in this game probably a year,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, and we've
Yeah.
got
And I know, like I've been through this with the Bill 47, the change in the law, and they're like, okay, you know what, I'm going to move on. When my dad taught me, one door closes, 3 doors open.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it objectively, okay? But the public in Canada, there's nothing. Canadians are great people. We live probably in the best country in the world. I've traveled. I think, honestly, my opinion is, if you live in Canada, you need to go to Bangladesh. You need to go to India. You need to go to
see some of
China. You
this,
need to see
yeah.
how other people live. And don't come back and complain about this country.
You truly appreciate what you
Yeah,
have.
and
100%,
and
yeah.
unfortunately, we do live in a G7 country, and the government's not going to take care of you.
Mhm.
You know, the reason why our family's been keep on successful is because we understand we got to pay the bills, we got to keep on trucking. Like a trucker. And so that's the biggest problem I'm going to see is the Canadian public. I think they understand what the First Amendment, Second Amendment is more than what's in the what's their legal rights in Canada. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would, yeah.
So how are we going to change that perception of the Canadians to understand, these guys and ladies served our country. They deserve as much as respect as someone that went, Omaha Beach on D-Day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Going to Kandahar and serving in Afghanistan, Iraq. I mean, I've even in 1991, I had a client, and he was on one of the ships, during the first Kuwait War, that first war, and he saw some bad stuff he told me about. He really didn't want to talk about, but a lot of people don't understand how much Canada served overseas. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, even our peacekeeping missions, they
Yeah,
had no
like-
idea we were there
yeah.
as well.
Like Rwanda. I
Yeah.
mean, the Hotel Rwanda. I don't think I don't think a lot of Canadians understood what happened with that. Wasn't that Canadian colonel that saved all those lives there in the hotel?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw a book about him, and he looks like he's a good looking guy. I don't know why he wasn't on the front of CBC News all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, he saved a lot of lives because
Face off, yeah.
yeah, there's a
absolutely.
lot of genocide that I don't know if you've seen that movie Hotel Rwanda.
I remember the name, I don't remember
Yeah,
that.
but he did. The Canadian peacekeepers had a big stay in that, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
And even in Sarajevo and Yugoslavia, but there's no recognition for that. And why is that? The Canadian government just doesn't have a priority for that.
Well, people remember combat, blood and gore, right?
Yeah,
Bullets.
but still, I mean, it's pretty Yugoslavia was torn apart.
Yeah.
I mean, Rwanda was torn apart. I mean, Afghanistan, that was real war. I mean, you had to deal with those people, the Taliban and all that stuff. And you remember, I remember watching the videos of those jets taking off in Kabul, and that reminded me of 1975 when the U.S. pulled out of Vietnam and they had that helicopter on the top of the building, and people were begging to get on there.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I mean, it's a great cause, and we want to help you as much as you want. You want our help, and I would like to educate people. But I think, we need to push it harder than, oppose America. Wouldn't you agree with that?
100%.
Yeah.
I feel the more advocates that we have to push, the better.
Yeah.
I mean, we're a small group, and we've got some great.
How big is your group right now?
There's 4 of us.
4 of us? Okay.
And we're growing.
Yeah.
Obviously, with corporate sponsorship,
Yeah.
you guys being our biggest partner right now.
Yeah.
And it's just getting the word out. I mean, as you know, marketing comes at a cost, and right
Yeah.
now we're doing that out of our pocket to try and spread the word. Our pins, they're like $5 each.
Yeah.
Our T-shirts and whatnot, they're $60. And,
Yeah.
we have a kit shop now where
Yeah.
we encourage people to come and start wearing our colors and ask questions about, what does that pin mean? What does
Yeah.
that helmet mean? And,
Yeah.
and we just kind of, we're coming at it from all angles.
So if someone wants to reach out to Invisible Warrior, are you guys at certain events part of the motorcycle community? Are you events in Calgary or Edmonton or across Canada where people can find you?
Yeah, so since it's just a small group, we
Yeah.
don't do that.
Okay.
But we do go to events as a motorcycle club, and we hand out our pins, shake hands, talk to people.
Invisible Warrior.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And what events would you guys like? Obviously, we're at the end of June. We're coming up to Canada Day. It's Canada's birthday again. Where would people find you in July and August this summer so that people can
Yeah.
you can educate people what you're trying to do?
So definitely any of the weekend shows that go on,
Yeah.
the events that are sponsored by different groups in and around Calgary.
Yeah.
I'll be in Kelowna most of my summer.
Okay.
I'll be at Rock Creek in the August long.
Yeah.
Winnipeg in September, and
Yeah.
I just travel around, and wherever I go, I carry my pins and
Okay.
card, and
Yeah.
always willing to have a conversation, and I wear
Yeah.
my swag as much as
Yeah.
I can to self-promote. And
Yeah.
yeah, so we
Okay.
can be found a lot of places, a gas station, Tim Hortons, you name
Yeah.
it, we'll have that conversation. So,
Okay. So you have four members of your group right now.
of the Invisible Warrior, yeah.
Okay. And if someone's seeing this podcast and they're a veteran and they want to join your group, how do they reach out to you to get membership?
Through invisiblewarrior.ca.
Okay.
Just, and we've got contact us, info, questions, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Send us an email, and it'll come to me, and we'll respond as quick as we
Okay.
can.
Okay.
We are on Facebook and Instagram, but my social media game is really weak. I just
Okay.
don't have time
Yeah.
to do it. So
Yeah. It's a full-time
yeah,
job.
it really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
I found that out when I tried
Yeah.
it, and I was like, oh, I can't do this
You
every
gotta
day,
do
every
like-
week.
Yeah,
It
you
was
got to
like-
do 2 or 3 posts or
yeah,
5
I
posts
need to
a day.
retire just to
Yeah,
be able to
exactly.
do that. So.
Okay.
So we're always looking for help in that space.
Yeah.
We're
Okay.
always looking for help for grant research and
Yeah.
writing grant letters, and
Okay.
we're just trying to get as much awareness and
Mm-hmm.
funding, and then then we can show up at more events.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're welcome to come to any Grover Law Firm events. We've got our Stampede Barbecue July 12th at Big Sky Barbecue. It's a free barbecue. The first 100 people eat for free. We're gonna have a pig roast, live country band, some giveaways. So if you are you in Calgary or Okotoks that time
I'm
of-
not, but we do
Okay.
have members that can be,
Yeah.
and
So if you wanna
we can
mention your-
certainly coordinate
yeah.
something there.
Okay.
That would be absolutely fabulous.
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
then we've got our bike night, July 16th at Elevate. So
I'll definitely be there for
Are you
that,
here?
yeah.
Are you gonna be there?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you guys wanna set up, you're glad to set up, talk to people. We're gonna have Vanishing Ones come out. They're gonna, that stunt group from
Yep,
Vancouver, they're
yep.
gonna be
No,
there.
they're pretty amazing
Yeah,
for sure.
okay. Any events we have, let me know. You know, you guys are free to show up. Yeah, I mean, we're out there. You've seen us on the
Yeah,
weekends.
I
We're-
see you guys
we
at
saw
all the
you
events now,
Calgary,
yeah.
Harley, open season, and I just like to go out and talk to people and talk to you again. Obviously, it's a great cause that you have, and I've got the utmost respect for anyone that serves in the military because they're sacrificing their life for our freedom.
Wow,
And
thank you.
I don't think people really understand. You know, we take it for granted. You walk down the street in Calgary, and no one's going to mug you.
Yep.
You know, you can close your door and go to sleep. You know,
You should feel safe.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
No, you are safe. I mean, obviously, you know, we have a legal system that works. A lot of countries are broken, unfortunately, and I mean, I think a lot of people don't understand, like, you know, going into Chinook Center and not getting stabbed or mugged, or you have a right to speak your own mind. A lot of countries I won't mention, you can't do that.
That's for
And
sure.
so
yeah.
that ability to have that freedom of speech is not for free, and I don't think people really understand that in Canada. Would you agree with that?
I would 100% agree
Yeah.
with that. Yeah.
Okay. And so how can people help you that are watching this video and this podcast to help you grow Invisible Warrior in Canada and get more public awareness of? Obviously, my podcast will help, but if
Yeah.
anyone's out there that wants to reach out and help you,
Yeah.
you take volunteers that
We
are not.
do.
Yeah.
Anybody who wants to help advocate, we'll
You don't
do
have
it.
to be a veteran to help Invisible
No.
Warrior, so?
No.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and many veterans have gone down this advocation path for veterans before.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's the typical get in touch with some political party, MLA, and they take your letter and they say they're going to move it up, but nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
So we feel our approach is different by
Yeah.
getting the public to be the voice.
Yeah,
Be the voice of veterans. It shouldn't be veterans having to fight for veterans.
Yeah.
Because we do that every day of our life.
Yeah,
We want
yeah.
the public to fight for veterans now,
Yeah.
and that's what we're pushing, is to try and get more
Yeah.
public awareness.
Okay.
To, you know, put up your hand and say, hey, if I can write a letter,
Mhm.
let me know.
yeah,
If I can stand at an event at Steve's
yeah,
shop and
Yeah.
help promote you guys,
yeah,
sign me up.
Yeah.
Let me do that. Like
Yeah.
whatever it takes is,
Yeah.
is getting the word out.
Okay.
And the more word we get out,
yeah,
then the more people that we can, you know, sign on as corporate sponsors,
Mhm.
individual donators, and
yeah.
we just keep the momentum going for the next couple of years, so
Okay.
we can be big enough to make an impact.
Yeah, and we'll do whatever we can at Grover Law from, you know, Peter Robinson, our marketing manager, and you know my staff here, so we love to support you guys and see it grow.
That's awesome. I truly
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Okay.
And I do have a gift for you guys.
Okay, sure.
This is fresh off the press. This is
Okay.
our limited edition. Every year we release a limited edition, so this is year 2.
Okay,
This is our Invisible Warrior long sleeve
Oh, okay.
shirt. And on the back of it, again, we have Red Friday.
okay.
And
So
Red
that's-
Friday is another movement out
Yeah.
there that talks about veterans, which is basically remember everyone deployed.
Okay, cool.
So I have one for you, and I have
Okay.
one for Peter.
All right.
So you
Well,
can see
thank
it's
you.
so helpful.
Yeah, well, thank you so
And,
much, and, you know, you know what, you must have read my mind, because Under Armour is my favorite gear to wear. I love
Wow.
dry fit stuff, so I'll wear
Yeah,
this to the gym
absolutely.
probably tomorrow for you, okay?
They're great for biking too.
Yeah,
So
oh, yeah,
we love
yeah.
them. They're thin enough
Yeah,
and
yeah. And you
warm
can
enough.
sweat through them.
You
Yeah.
betcha. Yeah.
So we talked about this. Let's talk about some fun stuff. So obviously you're a rider,
Yes.
motorcyclist rider. You're a Harley Davidson rider.
I am drinking that Kool-Aid now.
And what? Tell everyone why you like a Harley Davidson opposed to like an Indian or a Kawasaki or even a BMW.
Yeah, so it's interesting, you know, most veterans will ride a US make model. Most veteran clubs, motorcycle
Yeah.
clubs,
Yeah.
MCs and whatnot,
Yeah.
demand that you have an American made versus, you know, an Indian or
Yeah.
Kawasaki or
Indians,
whatever.
Polaris.
I
They
know.
got the biggest military
So,
contract in America.
So
But-
yeah, so I walked into the showroom and
Yeah.
and I saw a whole bunch of bikes and Colby, who you know,
Oh yeah, he's now the
before
GM.
before he's a bigwig that he is,
Yeah.
he was a sales guy there, and
Yeah.
I just bumped into him and I said I want to buy a bike because I had money to burn in my pocket. And
Okay.
then we walked around and looked at the used stuff and the new stuff, and then
Mhm.
I eventually settled on the 2019 Street Bob that I
Yeah.
have, and
Yeah.
then I basically ripped it apart and rebuilt everything
Okay.
in it, because that's what you do when you have a Harley. Is
Yeah,
you
you
know
have to
the
spend
bike
money.
cost you
Yeah.
20,000, but you've just dumped 40,000 in upgrades in
Yeah,
it. So
exactly.
and then you just drink the Kool-Aid, and it's hard to go back.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
obviously, yeah. So you're a Harley rider right now, but you
Yeah.
did have a Kawasaki at one time. You sold
Yeah,
that.
just sold my Ninja
yeah.
and just closed the deal actually this week. Yeah, so
Okay.
that was a little hard to say goodbye,
Yeah.
but my wife was pretty happy that I got it out of the
Oh,
garage. so-
congratulations, you got
Yeah.
sold. Yeah, my dad was he loved Yamaha. That
Mhm.
was his bike he loved, and that
Yeah.
everyone's. But I do like the Japanese bikes. I've had Yamaha.
I love the
mean,
Raiders and the
yeah.
Strikers. They're beautiful
yeah.
bikes. Yeah.
But I like Kawasaki's are good because I like that
Yeah.
lime green color. It looks pretty funky.
Yep.
And they got some cool bikes. They have that Z2R or something, H2R or
H,
something.
yeah.
They've got the Ninjas.
Mhm.
They got some good Z900 naked bikes, stuff like
Yeah.
that. So if I went back to Japanese bike, I'd probably go back to Cowie.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're cool bikes.
yeah. It's
And-
cyclical, right? Right
Yeah.
now, Honda's kind of the go-to, and the Beamers are kind of the go-to, and
Yeah.
everybody's buying them. But you
Yeah.
know, this time next year, everyone's going to go back to
Oh,
something
but
else.
but
so,
racing
yeah.
bikes. I don't know if you've been watching racing. Like it's on TSN now and Sports Center. Ducatis are like really killing it right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like,
beautiful
They
bikes.
got Mark Marquez on their
And
team.
Aprila's and,
Yeah,
yeah.
Aprilia's down there.
Yeah.
Number one's Ducati. Somewhere in between is probably like KTM. Yamaha's down there too. They're not doing well, but Honda's like in the middle right now. But
Yeah.
Cowie's nowhere to be found on the MotoGP circuit at all. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I've got a couple Harley Davidsons. They're good bikes, and it's always kind of a good culture to get involved in. I mean, they're very good at marketing, creating a family unit, and that's what you like about Harley
Yeah.
Davidson. And other than that, any other hobbies you enjoy?
I work out quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'm part of a boxing gym, so I
Okay.
do that
Yeah.
twice a week, and
Yeah.
like to pretend that my 60-plus-year-old body is still 20.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not your age; it's your mindset.
it really is,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
always push myself for that,
Yeah.
and I run 3 times a week, so
Okay,
I keep
that's good.
fairly
Yeah.
active. I spend quite a bit of time volunteering at a pet rescue.
Okay.
So we're
that's
all
good.
about give back. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's just in our
Yeah.
culture, right?
Oh, yeah.
Give what you can, and
Yeah.
that pretty much fills my calendar. I'm
Well, that's
lucky.
busy enough, and
Yeah.
obviously dealing with Invisible Warrior too.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I always think I mean, my parents, they always taught me and my 3 younger sisters the value of not being a taker but giving a giver.
Yeah,
And when you have a business, like a law firm or any kind of business where you have the ability to give back to the community, I think it's really important for that business to give back to the community. And we're proud to be involved with Invisible Warrior, and we can do it. We'll help in any way we can. Okay?
we're honored to have you as a
All right.
corporate
But
supporter.
you're gonna
so-
have to watch Hyena. What's that? Hyena Road.
Okay,
I'm gonna have to watch that. I'm gonna
I'll go home and search on it.
It's
and
on-
see if
it
it's
was
on
on-
one of my streams. Yeah.
It was on Netflix years ago.
Oh,
I haven't
okay.
seen it, so but yeah.
I'm sure
I'm
you
in
can
the
find it.
process of going through the Mission Impossible movies right now
Oh,
because
okay.
the
yeah, 'cause
Reckoning
the
ones
new
come
one,
out.
Yeah.
So I
Catch
gotta-
up.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Fallout was pretty good. I watched that last night. Tom Cruise. I mean, that guy. He's a machine. He'll never
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
I read an article. He wants to keep on acting
It's
until he's
crazy.
100.
It's crazy, right?
But what's a guy like that? Like if you get, he's probably got 600 million in the bank, U.S.
Just does it because he loves it, right?
But what are you gonna do? You
Yeah.
know, like I mean, the question is, people always want to retire. Like, I want to retire. I want to retire. Well, if you retired, say you had 100 million in the bank, what would you do?
Yeah.
Go to Starbucks every morning or Tim Hortons, get your coffee, go work out, and that's done by 10 o'clock. What are you gonna do for the rest of the day?
Yeah.
You probably keep yourself busy.
I'd find things to keep busy,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
my wife needs a concrete plan before I can retire. So
exactly.
hence I'm still working.
Exactly. And then she may say, like, well, I mean, you mean both of us are going to be at home every day? I think you need
Yeah,
to go
get
out of the
out,
house
yeah.
for 6 or 7 hours, come back at 4
Yeah.
or for dinner time. Okay.
Awesome.
And any plans for this summer? I mean, you mentioned you're going over to BC pretty soon.
Yeah, my daughter and her fiance are moving back to Calgary,
Okay.
so we're gonna spend some time out there helping them transition
In-
back here.
in Kelowna, or
From Kelowna back
Yeah,
to
okay,
Calgary.
yeah.
And my son is out there, and he just bought his first house. So we're
okay,
gonna
congratulations to him. That's a
help.
big
Yeah,
step.
it's
you
a
know.
big, huge step.
Yeah,
So we're gonna
yeah.
go out there a few times and help him out there.
Okay,
And
cool.
then my brother's out there, so we're gonna do a big family get together.
Okay, just be careful you ride your bike in BC because you can't
Yeah.
sue. If
Yeah.
some guy T-bones you and you broke your leg or paralyzed, or
Oh gosh,
It
I
is
hope
what
that
it
never
is.
happens, but
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But BC's a beautiful. Yeah, I'm heading out this weekend. We always sponsor the Ducati. I like Ducati. I ride Ducati. In my collection, I got a couple Ducatis. But we always sponsor that Ducati Western Canada Rally. So I'm gonna be heading out there this weekend. That's in Nelson, beautiful Nelson. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've been to Nelson.
I have. I love that place.
Yeah, it's great. And just that whole Kootenay Lake there. I like the Kootenay Pass where you go up and you come down and you go to Nelson and what's that place? That little town. I forget the name of it. It's just before you turn to go to Nelson. It starts with an S. I'll see it this weekend.
Yeah.
It's just a
As soon
weird-
as I walk out, you'll
Huh?
remember it.
No,
No,
it's
no,
not
no.
Salmon
It's a
Arm.
long ways from that.
No, Salmon Arm's over by on the way to
Sycamoose,
Kelowna.
yeah.
Yeah, Sycamore. I'll let you know when I'm back next week.
Yeah, it'll come to you. Yeah.
But yeah, and the Kootenay's great, and I don't know if you knew, but 15% of the world's rainforest is in that Kootenay area.
No, I
don't
didn't
if you
know
knew
that stat.
I didn't know that till last year. That was like, wow, that blew my
Yeah,
mind. 'Cause
it's
you-
crazy.
when you think of rainforest, you think of Brazil. You don't think of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
But the trees are just massive out there,
Yeah.
especially on the east side of the Kootenay Lake, because we stayed near Crawford Bay. You know that area?
Yep.
Yeah. And there's massive trees, like holy. I never seen, like, other than California, like Northern California. I never seen so many big trees in my life. And great golfing around there. I don't know if you're into
Oh, I
golfing.
love golfing down in BC and the
yeah,
Okanagan.
yeah.
There's so many beautiful courses.
Anywhere,
there.
like Kootenay's
Yeah.
beautiful, Creston's nice. I mean, you get out of Alberta, and you have to go through Fernie, which is not one of my favorite places to go, and then you hit what's the other place where the Niedermeyer brothers are from? I forget.
Yeah.
It's one of the bigger cities, and then you
Yeah.
hit Creston, and then you get to Nelson. It's beautiful up there.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
gorgeous,
I love
yeah.
that highway down through there too.
Yeah, and then you get to
yeah.
the peach farms and the fresh fruit and all that stuff. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
great.
And
yeah.
it's right in that season when we're going to be out there, so we're looking
Yeah.
forward to that.
All right.
That and the wineries.
All right. Well, great. Well, and obviously, your last name is Francis.
Yes.
So you're not related to Ron Francis, are you?
I wish. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Because he'd have some of his money. Eh?
Yeah, I would. I'd probably skate half as good as him too, but I don't. So,
Yeah, but he was a really good player. I think he played 20 years in the NHL.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so you're not related to Francis.
No.
Okay. Well, he's not related to you. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
Is that
he probably wish he was. So.
Okay. All right. Well, Len, I really appreciate you taking the time being here. I mean, it was great to talk to you. Obviously, on the podcast, I hope you enjoyed yourself. Hopefully, we
did.
educated people about Invisible Warrior, and I hope the pathway to achieve your goal with this great charity happens in the near future, and all veterans are equally recognized in Canada because they all deserve it.
Awesome. Thank you
Okay,
so
well,
much.
thank you so much, Len. Take care. All right, thanks. And we got a basket for you for being a guest on the podcast from Grover Law Firm.
Thank
And
you
it's
so
and
much.
it's $25 Tim Hortons gift card, so hopefully you enjoy that in Kelowna.
Awesome.
Okay?
Thank you so much.
Well, and hopefully we'll see you at some of our events this year,
We
or
will,
have
for
some
sure.
of your members of Invisible Warrior
Yeah,
show up,
I'll
okay?
chat with them this weekend to see if we
Okay.
can get it.
All
couple
right.
people to
Great.
sit in the booth with you with your ambassadors.
Sure.
We won't be as good looking as your ambassadors.
No, I'm not even good looking, don't worry about it. But you know what? I appreciate you being on there. It's a great cause, and hopefully you educate a lot of Canadians about what's out there, and we want to help our veterans. And appreciate everyone tuning in for this episode of the Bulldog Brewhouse podcast. And remember, we live in Canada, one of the best countries in the world, and just remember, freedom is not free. If it wasn't for our veterans, we wouldn't be sitting here enjoying our freedom. Take care.